Good evening and welcome to the February version of the monthly meeting of the Board of Electric Commissioners of Burlington. As usual, it's held here at 585 Pine Street at 5 o'clock. Second Wednesday of the month, and everybody in Burlington is welcome to come down and join us and join in the conversation. We'll start off this evening with the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, subtractions to the agenda? None that we know of. Okay, cool. Moving on to item number 2, minutes of the January 8th, 2025 meeting. If they're looking for a motion to accept the minutes of the January 8th meeting, if there are any changes that are substantial, otherwise any sort of, clerical things can be done with the clerk. Are there any substantial changes or anything that needs to be? So it'd be good. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Motion to accept the minutes as presented.
We'll get a motion to have a second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by saying nay. 4 ayes, no nays. Motion passes. Item number 3 would be public forum. This is a time if there's anybody joining us either online or in the building. We have nobody here in the building. Do we have anybody online? Jevons, is that you? This is the time for people to speak up and speak their minds and say hello and let us know what they're doing. So, Jevons Paradox, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually Pike Porter. I didn't know how to change my name in Teams.
Sorry about that.
I had a couple of requests regarding the Valerity request, the proposal. One, I want to acknowledge that the original resolution that created this proposal, the District Energy Resolution of November 2023, also stipulated that there would be public meetings and convenings, which would include the public, community groups that would monitor the process of the analysis, provide comments on plans and actions. And I think those meetings should be included in the RFP or the plan, incorporated right into it as deliverables, so that those are not forgotten, so that there's robust public input regarding this analysis. I'd also like to point out that ISO New England had over 8,000 gigawatt hours of hydropower. And in fact, in 2023, BED used close to 150,000 megawatts of hydropower. I mention this because the resolution and the Valerity proposal suggests that, it says, until truly low carbon solutions of electricity, such as wind, solar, hydropower, can be provide reliable electricity generation, there's already an abundance of hydropower out there that could provide a replacement for McNeil. And I think that should be specifically addressed as an item that Valerity would look into, so that they would identify the hydropower producers in the ISO New England area and determine how much of that power could be purchased with a power purchase agreement to replace McNeil. So those are my 2 requests. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the public here that has anything to bring up? I don't see anybody. Okay. And I would certainly invite the general manager to address those if he feels that's a thing to do. But you can do that in your.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we could certainly, when we get to the Valerity scope, I could address those points.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to talk about that anyway, right?
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so happy to defer to that point.
Sounds good. All right, so that will come up, Pike. Anybody else from the public? Seeing none? Thank you. We'll move on to Commissioner's Corner. This is a time for commissioners to bring up anything that they want to bring up that's we haven't talked about from the last month of life and going ons and whatever. So, commissioners, you have the floor.
The only thing that, we got a couple of emails from Pike Porter as well about the EEU
Yes.
stuff, so I don't know if you're gonna talk about that during the, okay.
I wasn't, but I do understand, although I didn't receive the emails directly, that there was concerns raised by Pike about the EEU, and Emily is deeper knowledge about this particular issue, and I'd invite her to speak to it if you're interested in spending a couple minutes just learning the details.
What do y'all think?
Yeah, no, I specifically asked
Okay.
for that, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But before we get too deep into the woods, are there any other things? Okay.
I don't have anything for tonight. Nope.
So, yeah, may as well talk about that for a second. We're listening, Pike.
Sure. So as I understand it, the question is wanting to hear more about the recently opened PUC investigation into the electric energy efficiency charge, also called the EEC. So yes, we've been working with DPS, the Department of Public Service, and the PUC to resolve this issue since last fall. It's been mentioned in your Commission monthly reports since September, actually, starting with the filing of our proposal for what the EEC should be in 2025, and then through October, November, December, kind of answering questions and going back and forth with the DPS and the PUC on that matter. So yes, the electric efficiency charge part of the EEU fund is in deficit. It's basically because expenditures have exceeded collections over the past few years. We have never overspent our approved EEU budget. So I want to be very clear about that. We've always stayed within the budget. The problem is a misalignment between the rate setting mechanism that figures out how much you need to collect to have enough money to support that budget. And then separately, there's every 3 years, the EEU operates on an every 3-year schedule. We have like an approved plan, approved budget for the next 3 years. And at the end of that 3-year period, you do this calculation that says, how much did you collect or how much did you spend relative to your budget? And if you underspent, you're supposed to credit that back in rates, in future rates. And so there's been a misalignment, we've finally got to the bottom of it, between the carry forward and the credit back calculation and the annual rate that figures out what you need to collect. And so we have credited back over the past 3 years just under $1.3 million to customers as a result of these carry forward calculations. And so it hasn't been properly factored into the rate calculation though. So we've basically been under collecting. We've been crediting back too much. The rate has been too low for the past 3 years, and that has put the fund into the hole. And everyone agrees on the situation and what has to be done to fix it, which is, unfortunately, the rates need to go up to make up for that difference. So 2025, the rates are going to go up, and they're going to go up substantially. The rates have been approved by the PUC for 2025, which, everyone is, dismayed about, right? It's unfortunate, and we're sorry to be in that position. And the investigation that the PUC opened is really just to make sure there's clarity on the root cause, that we understand it, the department understands it, the PUC understands it. And there's a scheduling conference tomorrow to sort of talk about what the process will be. The process will be up to the PUC, but the department is on the same page with us and not seeing this as a contested, long, drawn-out thing. We have already done the homework to sort of figure out how, which comes down to like a spreadsheet calculation interpretation error. So it's pretty straightforward, we think. And we'll see, how the PUC wants to proceed tomorrow. But that's, I hope, helpful update.
Yeah, and it looks like the rates go up significantly, but from a small base, right? So we're talking about $300 a month.
Yeah.
So maybe $36 to $50 a year, something like that.
Right.
And do people who are in the low-income programs, can they get relief from that?
No.
They're exempt from that?
It's a 12, let me say, it's a discount on, trying to think of it.
I don't
think it affects the
that the
EDC.
current energy assistance program affects the efficiency charge, but there is, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but there is legislation pending that would enable us to put the efficiency charge into the assistance program so that it would qualify in the future. So it's not current practice, but there's actually a bill pending that might enable us to do that we're supportive of.
Okay, because, yeah, I mean, I think it's a big percentage, but it's a small dollar amount,
Right.
$3 or $4 a month. But for some person, that could be a hardship.
Yeah.
And it's expensive to be here, there's a lot of taxes and fees and things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
So,
it's unfortunate, right? But it's kind of like where we were without a rate case for 12 years, and then we had to,
Right.
so rates have been lower than they otherwise would have been, and lower than they should have been, really, for the past 3 years. And so unfortunately, we're trying to make up the difference kind of in 1 year, and then it'll take a year or two to kind of like get back out and get back to level. But when we're no longer including in the rate calculation the need to make up for a deficit, the rate should drop, right? It will no longer be pressured up by kind of filling that hole, because the hole will be filled, if
Yeah,
that
the
makes sense.
efficiency charge rate, unlike traditional rates, does fluctuate up and down.
Yeah,
Traditional rates tend to go up for the most part, but these are kind of match spending in the efficiency program, and so they're going to move up and down a bit.
I think you may have confirmed what I was trying to, if I'm getting this right, especially since you just went back to the 12 years, that we didn't have, and we've been coming back with, 4 and 5% and all that. When we could have, and I know we talked about, we could have gone as high as 10, 11, 12%, and that would have been perfectly justified. So we really should have been going up by, whatever that difference is, somewhere in the middle there, to
Right.
make up for that.
Right.
So we really have been kind of cut under,
yes. And in
That's
fact, the past 3 years, the rate has dropped.
yeah. When it really
Because
should
we
have
were
could have
crediting
maintained
back
or got- okay.
1.3 million, right? So
Right.
crediting back 1.3 million caused the rate to go down, but it went down sort of artificially low. It probably would have gone down a bit, but not that much.
And the rate setting process for the efficiency charge much different than the rate setting process for general rates. Because it's really based on a portion of our budget that goes towards efficiency programs, and it's regulated in a different manner at the DPS and PUC. And so, it is not a conscious decision to have lowered those rates. That was,
It's very formulaic.
yeah,
Right.
it wasn't like a
Right.
discretionary decision on our part.
Very formulaic. And the formulaic part of it is how we kind of unwound up here, right? Because a piece of the formula was missing, essentially,
Yeah.
which spit out an incorrect answer. And we didn't catch it, and the department didn't catch it, and, so it's finally being addressed. So,
Okay. Other questions?
Thanks for that. Oh, and one more question. Actually, Pike Porter, this is different. He just mentioned that, he used a word I didn't understand
What was that?
about the RFP. I don't know if it's the name of the RFP.
Valarity?
Valarity.
Valarity,
They're,
yeah.
they're
Company.
the proposed selected vendor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Any other items for Commissioner's Corner? And Pike, I hope that gave you some clarity as well. We'll move on to the General Manager update.
All right. Just a couple items here. We're continuing to be in the same boat as a number of entities around the country with the uncertainty about federal grants. Certainly, we have had kind of a freeze impact on our EV charging grant, as well as some of our other grants in terms of the communication, as well as the ability to kind of advance the programs. We are working with coalitions. We are working with the mayor's office to sign on to amicus briefs that are relevant in litigation around these issues. We're staying in touch with our congressional offices and trying to make sure that they're aware of our challenges. So, nothing unique to BED. It's certainly an unfortunate situation. We're well situated to manage it. None of these are, we're not in the position where we've expended funds, in some significant way and need a reimbursement. We were more at the front end of the process with these grants, but dismaying, and we are hopeful to see progress with some of the different court orders that have been coming out in terms of unfreezing these funds and helping us move forward. That's on the federal side. On the positive news, on the state side, unaffected by the federal situation, VW settlement funds, we were able to get a second grant award for an all-electric bucket truck through the state. Thanks to Paul for helping to lead up that effort. So we got a grant acceptance at City Council on Monday, and we anticipate sometime in the next 20 to 24 months being able to bring the second all-electric bucket truck into service. We're learning with the first all-electric bucket truck through the winter time kind of what some of the challenges are. Particularly, you have an extended outage and the truck needs to operate in very cold weather, and we're seeing some of the performance challenges that can exist. So we're going to try to spec the next truck with even better cold weather performance in particular. But we're excited to continue to electrify our fleet in a really meaningful way, and that's definitely a welcome grant opportunity. And lastly, we had testimony this morning. I mentioned the efficiency program potentially being subject to the energy assistance program. This is within a broader bill, which is X65, which is intended to take, I think, elements of what the governor talked about in his budget address, as well as a proposal from Senator Ann Watson, who's the lead sponsor on the bill, kind of move us even further down the road that we've been on with our efficiency funds, which is to unlock them for use for emission reduction projects, not just energy efficiency in the traditional sense. So for the past 4 or 5 years, we've had the ability to fund geothermal test wells to enhance our EV incentives, our heat pump incentives. We reported on some of that progress today. This bill would really go a step further and enable us to take an even bigger leap. And obviously not just us, but Efficiency Vermont, which is the bigger chunk for the state. So we're excited about the concept. We're in support of the bill, and it would create a process where they would look at having a statewide low-income rate for the efficiency charge, and would also allow us, having already established a low-income rate through the Energy Assistance Program, to apply that to the efficiency charge. So that's just one element of the bill. But I think it has a lot of potential. I think there's some good language in there. I'm sure they're going to vet it, and it'll change as it moves forward. But we're excited about it, and we'll see kind of where it can go this session. But in light of having a number of other substantive items on the agenda, I kept the report short. Glad to answer any questions.
What is the cost compared relative the electric truck to the?
The electric truck is usually between like 750, 800,000 roughly.
Yeah, the last two, this one that we're looking to get, and the first one, between 750 and 800.
Traditional diesel truck might be about half that cost.
Mm-hmm.
So there's pretty significant upfront gap. Obviously operating savings, maintenance savings, et cetera. But absent the grant, it would be a lot harder to justify the upfront capital delta. With the grant, it actually becomes cheaper essentially to go with the electric option than it would be to go with the diesel option. So this is an area with the heavy-duty trucks that costs haven't come down quite the same that they have for passenger vehicles as of yet. But we're an early adopter, so we're doing our part to drive down that cost curve.
Anticipate, significant savings, obviously fuel and maintenance.
Yep.
Those are the two big things.
Absolutely.
One other quick question. Is there any contingency plan should the funding dry up for the federal? Yeah.
Well, on the EV charging, before we had gotten the grant in August, we had a plan that was less ambitious in terms of scale, but was still ambitious through the revenue bond that was approved ultimately in November to add a number of new level 2 chargers and level 3 chargers. So, we'll advance that either way. So with the EV grant, it's really a question of scale. Do we have the ability to really kind of fully fund our plan, or are we going to have to be very selective and only fund portions of what we would like to do? So there will be a meaningful impact on our kind of progress and our pace, but we are still resourced through the revenue bond to continue funding EV charging in Burlington, so that's positive. The Building Giants program, I think without the federal funding, we haven't really discussed whether we would be able to move forward with the heat pump pilot rate and the various commercial programs. We still have very much interest in those programs, but we haven't really done any exercises to look at what we would be able to fund and how it would affect the scale. We do have, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, reimbursements that are in process but have not been completed for that grant, which is different than the EV charging grant, which is not yet obligated. And so we're hopeful that pending some of these different, litigation, different things, that if those are processed, that's a good signal that we can, advance the grant and move forward. So slightly different places with those in terms of the mitigation and planning, but they're both areas that ultimately we're going to invest in. It's just a question of how much resource we're going to have, how quickly we can move. Yeah.
And can I offer quickly too, you guys approved last month the dynamic organics contract. We're certainly not signing contracts before we need to make the process go forward. So again, we're, as Darren said, we're looking at, at least risk mitigation efforts while we watch what's going on. So, if that contract is not critical to the process advancing today, we can wait to sign it, and that's what we're doing.
Right on. Other questions? All right, thank you for that. Move on to item number 6, which is our financial review with Emily.
Okay, so here are the results for December of FY25. It was a good month. We had budgeted to have a net loss of $29,000. We had an actual net income of $122,000, so we did better than budget by $51,000. Helped by sales to customers at the top, favorable to budget by $139,000. Sales are up for the year to date, as you can see there, by, let's see, just about, 1.2%. So not a lot on the percentage basis, but helpful. Was not a rec revenue month in December, so we just had other revenues, small variance, negative variance of $75,000. Moving down to expense, net power supply expense was pretty much on the money, only a $5,000 variance. For the year to date, you can see that is favorable to budget by $224,000. And just want to point out, I'm going to go down, and you're deeper in the packet than we usually do. But this page, which kind of gives you the detail, the high level on net power supply costs. If you look down here, these are interesting numbers. So you can see here the load that we projected to serve and the load we're actually serving, and then the price per megawatt hour. So when we do the budget, we're projecting both the cost of the energy, but we're also projecting how much energy we'll have to supply, right? So for the year to date, we are essentially serving more load for less money per megawatt hour than we budgeted. So this is good for both for the month and for the year to date. So just back up to where we were. Other operating expenses were unfavorable to budget by $51,000. Small variances with depreciation and taxes. And then we had a pretty large variance favorable here in other income and deductions, where the timing of those things can be difficult to predict. Let's see, looking at the wrong notes, sorry. So we had some revenues from billable work orders come in. That was, the timing was off from budget, and we also took in more in interest income than we had budgeted.
Emily, before you move off that line, is it, I don't know if we share with the commission about the FEMA reimbursement?
Yes, yep. So we do have an update from FEMA. So direct communication from FEMA, it's a little fuzzy, but this is what I think is the case. The case is that our funds are fully obligated in the FEMA portal, and our FEMA person has kind of closed out the dam project and has transitioned us over to the state, which the Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Management is kind of the disbursement agency, right? And so we've received about $70,000 so far from the state for the smaller projects like debris removal and this other, repairing the roof and stuff. But the big grant project for the replacement of the dam itself is considered a large project because of the dollar amount. And so we have to submit a little bit more documentation in order to be reimbursed. We were notified by the state a couple weeks ago that because it's a large project, they can do a reimbursement basically based on your actual expenditures to date. So you don't need to wait until the entire project is completed to submit all your paperwork and get your money. So they'll essentially reimburse 90% of every dollar that we've spent so far. So the accounting team is kind of putting together the documentation package, and we can get that down to Montpelier, which is good news because, these things take time for the documents to be reviewed and the funds to be dispersed. And so gives us a greater likelihood of getting all of the proceeds in by June 30. And if not all, at least we'll have a substantial portion because to date, the expenditures on that project, I think, are around $1 million already. And it's nearly complete. So
And that's like the bulk of that.
yes,
red
that's
right there.
exactly. This negative 1.1 variance for the year to date, is the timing of the FEMA reimbursement. Yeah. So that should right itself by June 30 is the point. Thanks, Darren. Questions on that page before I move on? Okay. Then looking at capital spending, as of December, we were just under 40% through our capital budget. I think I mentioned last month that we received a number of switches. I also learned today that we're starting to see transformers arrive, which is great news. So that will help this distribution capital budget move or progress towards spending more fully. And cash as of December 31st was 10.96 million. That compares to our budget of 10.3 million, so we're around $670,000 better than budget, which is good. And then the credit rating factors are also pretty strong. 5.11 on the debt service, 1.34 on the adjusted, and 148 days cash on hand if you consider the $10 million line of credit.
That was good.
Any questions?
No
Thank you.
questions? Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. On to item number 7, battery storage, discussion and vote. I'm not sure who's got that, but
I'll start off with that one. So you have in the packet a fairly concise letter of agreement related to this item. And as the commission knows, we're in negotiations with the joint owners over the potential future ownership of the plant and site. This is a tangible progress item from that negotiation, which is we have an RFP that's out currently for battery storage up to 5 megawatts at one or more sites in Burlington. One of those sites certainly could be McNeil. And this enables us to advance that type of project up to 5 megawatt battery at McNeil with the agreement of the joint owners that BED would be solely responsible for, we would contract for, we would get the benefits and bear the costs, including any costs of any eventual decommissioning of the battery. And essentially, if we reach an agreement with the joint owners ultimately to transfer the plant, then this enables us to move forward and there's not a whole lot else to do. If we don't reach that agreement for any reason, then we have a good faith obligation to work with the joint owners to come up with a fair way to enable value sharing with them for the battery to make sure that they are able to be a part of it, given that it would be on property that they 50% own in that scenario. So that's really what this is. It's just a good opportunity to advance something tangible at the McNeil site. that supports our innovation focus and lets us keep that site as an option under that RFP or any other future endeavor. So we are bringing it to the commission as a power supply item, and if you agree and approve, we will be in position to advance that. I'm glad to answer any questions if the commission has any.
This is just if such a battery winds up at that site.
Yeah, it enables us.
If you choose a different site, then
Right, this would be.
This means nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's correct.
I move that the general manager shall have the authority
No
to.
questions?
Oh,
Okay, I just didn't know if there were anybody had any questions before we? No.
Should I go ahead?
I just want to make sure that we're,
I move that the
Yeah.
general manager shall have the authority to execute the proposed battery storage agreement substantially in the form provided to the commission.
we have a motion. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second?
Motioned and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying nay. 4 ayes, no nays, motion passes. Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Moving on. McNeil RFP.
Okay, so as you all remember, you had a joint meeting with TUC, and you enabled us to issue RFPs on 2 subjects, one of which was related to forestry. That one we've had open twice. We've only had one bidder that was outside of the budget by a significant margin. We have it open again, and we're hopeful that maybe the third time will be the charm. And so if we're successful there, we'll bring you a proposal in probably the March meeting for the forestry one. This one, however, is ready to go. We received for the what I characterize as sort of the emission reduction, efficiency, and innovation RFP. We received 3 bids, one of which was outside of the budget, 2 of which were in budget. We had a cross-disciplinary team that reviewed, tried to look for which one would give us the most useful information relative to the things that were in the city council resolution. We have here the proposal from Valerity, which is the vendor that we believe gives us everything that we need, does so in budget, which we appreciate. If you look through on in the packet, I believe it's on page 53, you can see that they listed out a number of the goals from the council resolution and the scope of work that they're going to have to address the items directly from the council resolution. I'll mention that very specifically in here, it says analyze the opportunity to repower McNeil, including with different fuels that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions at the stack until truly low carbon sources of electricity such as wind, solar, hydropower, and storage can reliably and affordably meet the needs of ratepayers. That language drawn directly, I believe, from the resolution. I think Pike mentioned hydropower. It's referenced here by Valerity as in the way that it was referenced in the resolution. This is not an RFP to help us find hydropower on the New England market. We do issue those from time to time. And of course, Commission will remember that we signed a contract with First Light as a result of one of those RFPs. It's not always easy to find hydro. There's not a growing source. There's no new hydro projects coming online at any scale. So really you're competing over existing resources. We have hydro as the largest resource in our portfolio by a significant margin because we have both large hydro from Quebec and New York and smaller hydro that we own and operate, Vermont Hydro, New England Hydro. So hydro remains a resource that's important to us. But that's not what this RFP is actually seeking. So wanted to address that comment that was made in public forum. Additionally, I wanted to point out that the scope, as you kind of move through, it very much mirrors a lot of the things that are in the resolution. Some of the things that we were interested in here really talk about the efficiency options that they're looking at and the fact that they're going to characterize each of these options based on a variety of key factors, including impact on ratepayers, impact on emissions, implications in the wholesale markets. And if you look on page 57, there's a kind of set of things that they're going to explore. Optimization and efficiency. Our team, particularly the team that is operations focused at McNeil, felt that some of these analyses could be very helpful to us in terms of finding opportunities to further improve efficiency. The district energy resolution talked about trying to reduce stack emissions at the plant 50% in 10 years. Some of that could be changes in operating parameters. If we do have full control of the site, we could potentially change some of the operating parameters. Some of it can be efficiency. Some of it could be the wood chip dryer that we're working on. So there's a combination of efforts here. They also are going to look at different fuel options, which was another aspect of the resolution. They list in here renewable natural gas, green hydrogen, biogenic hydrogen from wastewater treatment, biogenic methane, green ammonia. They're going to look at repowering options, which is another thing we've been interested in understanding and that they talk about here, including waste wood pyrolysis and combined cycle. They're looking at carbon capture in certain respects as well. They have in here that they would have an interim report 60 days after the agreement is signed, and then a final report 120 days after the agreement is signed. Those are very reasonable timeframes. Obviously, this has to come here to the commission tonight. I don't believe it will be able to go to the TUC along with the other RFP probably until March, and then it'll have to go to the council, which could be March or April. So I anticipate hopefully wrapping this process, which is not our typical process, and if it was just up to us, we'd advance it tomorrow, but this is what was spelled out in the resolution, so it's going to take a little time to get it through. But once it's done, we'll have a report in a relatively short period of time, an interim report, and then a final report. I do note that while the resolution itself had language about the TUC in particular, I think having convenings and seeking public input. We're having a public meeting tonight, certainly, which is an opportunity for people to provide input. We'll continue to have that opportunity. They do have in here, in the scope of work, reference to and an understanding of that there could be stakeholder input that's provided through various types of forums that they can incorporate into their work product. So I think that's addressing the other issue that Pike raised. I believe it's already here in the scope of work as it stands. So we feel good about the consultant's expertise. I've never worked with them. I'd never heard of them prior to this, but they look like they can bring some really useful analysis to us and give us some ideas how we shape the future of the plant. So we're excited. We're bringing it here for your review and approval, and then that process would continue with the TUC and the City Council. And glad to answer questions, and obviously James is online as well, and was also part of the team that reviewed the proposals.
Questions from commissioners?
So, yeah, I think now I know it, for whatever that word is. Clarity. Clarity means. So I think $25,000 is not a big consulting assignment.
No.
And so I do think it would be great to have stakeholder and public engagement, but I don't think there's resources for that. I mean, certainly they're going to do everything on the desktop, right? They're not going to.
Yeah, I mean, they have on page 54, I was just looking for it so I can reference it now specifically. They talk about having an initial kickoff meeting that would include like how we're going to collectively engage stakeholders and have community engagement, what the process is for stakeholder input, that the interim and final report will conform to the approaches and standards guided by BED experience and input from local stakeholders. So they're clearly contemplating that they'll receive input, that there will be opportunities. I know that TUC and this body and others may be able to provide those opportunities, however we determine is most efficient. So I agree for $25,000, they can't lead a stakeholder engagement process, but they're clearly conscious that that's one of the things that we want to have an option for.
Right.
Other questions from commissioners? So speaking of public engagement, Pike, if you're still there, I'll take your comments if you have any.
Thanks for taking a second round of comments. Yeah, I'll just have to believe that the stakeholder engagement will proceed as the general manager is describing it. I'm skeptical, but I'll keep an open mind.
Okay, well, you're engaging right now, so that's a start, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
So-
for cost-effective solutions, they could make a presentation to the TUC or to the BED board, and people could submit, but that's probably all there is in the budget to do.
Yeah, they'll have an opportunity, I think, and we'll try to make it as efficient as possible for them, given that there is limited resource for it. But they'll have an opportunity to incorporate stakeholder input, but they're also the expert third party that's going to give us information. And then there can be additional stakeholder engagement that's contemplated in the resolution that's not specifically only related to this one report, but can be related to, broader engagement with the community around a broader set of issues. So I think they're open to it, which is important. We definitely had that in the RFP. They reflected that in the scope of work, and we'll work with our various governing bodies to make sure there's an efficient way to get public input into the process. Yeah.
Great. So I'm not sure, is this a public document, that what we're looking at here?
It is. This is a highly unusual way to go about this. Typically, we would not bring this to a public meeting. And if you were to ask me to discuss the other bids, I'd probably have to ask
No, I
to
mean,
go.
this is what I'm looking at.
Yes,
This
this is public
Okay.
currently.
Okay.
But I wanted to say that if we were to discuss any of the other bids, I would probably have to go to an executive session
Sure.
in order to kind of discuss those. But because of the way this was set up, I don't know any other way to do this in a transparent manner where the public can see what we're looking at too, than to post it.
Okay, so-
It's not ideal.
I'm just prefacing what I'm about to
Yeah.
say. So hopefully, and Pike, I hope you've read this document that we're all looking at here, because one of the things that stood out to me in the end, down towards the end of it here, is their where we're asking them to contemplate, what other fuels can be had there, what if McNeil's not there? So it gives me comfort to know that part of what they're doing is taking a look beyond McNeil, or what is currently going on at McNeil, and what can be different or better there. And I hope that gives you some comfort as well.
Yeah, we'll wait. That there was the report that the general manager provided in November that did not look at hydropower, and thus concluded that there was no possible way to replace McNeil. And now he's saying that this is not the way to, So I don't know. We'll see. I've made my request, and we'll see where things fall.
Okay. I mean, have you read this document that I'm looking at?
Oh yes, I have read it.
All right. Good enough.
I don't have page numbers, so I can reference where.
Well, because it's part of a whole big packet we got, but as long as we're on the same page, that's good with me. Any other questions about this from commissioners? And I'll give you a chance. One more. Anything more from you, Pike? I'm indulging you here.
Yes, you are, and I appreciate it, but no, I don't have any more comments or questions at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I believe there's some suggested language, if I'm not mistaken.
Should be right at the very bottom of the proposal. I think it's on page.
We have it.
You do have it, okay.
Yeah, if
Yep.
someone's got it, that'd be great.
You want me to read?
Please.
Okay.
I can't find
I
it.
move that the Electric Commission approve and recommend to the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee and the City Council approve the proposed contract with Valerity for work related to a study of options for the McNeil generating station.
Alrighty, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by saying nay. 4 ayes, no nays. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's just take care of number 10 first. We're not expecting to come out with any decision out of executive session, right?
No, there's
So-
no votes or anything in
All right,
executive
so let's do
session.
commissioners check-in. Just this chance for if anything kind of slips through the cracks that you just got one more question about before.
I have one
and
thing
there
I
we
want to
go.
ask Meneer. Are there any streetlight projects this spring? I know we're getting into the good weather,
Rock that
so.
boat.
All right, next month maybe we can talk about it. But
So
still,
we love streetlights around here.
Just wanna know
Yeah,
before they
yeah,
happen, yeah.
Before it hits. Okay, great. So the next thing we have is, and the last thing we have is an executive session regarding McNeil commercial items, and I believe there should be 2 motions associated with that. One to go into executive, one to findings of fact, and then the other of going into executive session. Hopefully we have those available here.
Want me to read the first?
Sure.
I move to find that premature general public knowledge of the McNeil commercial items would clearly place the Burlington Electric Department at a substantial disadvantage per Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed indicate by saying nay. Motion passes. And then want to go in, yep, take the second one.
Okay. I move the commission enter into executive session of the BED staff to discuss the McNeil commercial items under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1A of the Vermont statutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed indicate by saying nay. All right, we're in executive session, and we don't expect to come out, we're not going to come out with any sort of decisions. So pretty much that's it for us, folks. Thank you for joining, and again, second Wednesday of the month, 5 o'clock here, 585 Pine. Always welcome to join us in the discussion. Thank you.